And we're off. Off
You
to
the wizard?
the races. Yes. There's a Golden Girls bit where Rose does a racehorse, and we're off to the yeah. So that always makes me think of that. But hello, welcome. I'm Emily. I host the podcast Level, and Sam Keenan, sitting next to me, produces it. Hi, Sam.
Hello, hello.
And we like to come. Wow, the plane's just now out and about here in South Minneapolis. Perfect timing.
Yes.
Wow, that's a loud one. So we get together once a week on Wednesdays. We try to talk about the upcoming episode for the week of Level, which features this week a conversation with a composer that we just had on a few months ago, but this is a little bit of a unique situation. We're talking about Ross Tregenza today, who did the music for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which came out toward the end of the summer, I think. And we had Ross on a few months ago, but that was never the intent. The intent of that conversation, I was to interview Wes Keltner, who's the CEO of the studio that made the game. And that morning, Wes was like, hey, should we see if Ross can get on the call? And so, I didn't have any prep like I usually have to listen to the soundtrack ahead of time. So after that call, I just kind of thought in the back of my head, I'm like, I think I want to have Ross back on. And I'm so glad because I loved talking to that guy. I just loved it. So super fun conversation. So we talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We talk about the music he did for Cyberpunk. And we talk about the music he did for Deathloop. And we talk about his band, which is called Goteki. They've been around for 2 decades on the English, British, industrial electronic scene. So there you have it. There's I wouldn't even know where to start, but I suppose Texas Chainsaw. But what are your thoughts, Sam? I don't know how much time you've had to get through the episode or anything.
I listened to some of the episode and a bunch of music. And I kind of skipped around the episode a little bit. It was funny because I listened to, obviously we had the show before on Texas Chainsaw and that was really cool. And I listened to some of that Goteki music on Bandcamp.
Okay, cool.
And it was just funny because I was pinpointing influences and stuff in the music and thinking to myself, I wonder if I'm just thinking that because they're influences that I would like, things like Depeche Mode and Nine Inch Nails and David Bowie and stuff like that. And those were the things kind of come into my mind, which is great because I love all that stuff. And I love that, just that genre. But
I think we're probably all kind of the same age. I know you and I are the same age, more or less. And I think Ross is probably maybe a year or two younger than us.
Right. So, exactly. Which would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Especially you and he did. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then just when I was skipping around the episode, I just landed on some spot where he was talking about literally Depeche Mode and Nine Inch Nails and David Bowie. I was like, oh, that whole era of music is something that I think is really cool and kind of got stamped out by grunge in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Especially and then pop punk, and in terms of the pop stuff in America even more so. But
right.
But yeah, there's a really cool genre spot in that early 90s where that stuff all kind of intersects, especially the Children of Depeche Mode kind of stuff and that's just all over his music, which is great,
Yeah. That's I figured you'd really understand the language he's speaking and his band in particular, just because it is so that era, and I really liked it. And plus I really like his voice. I think he has such a lovely singing voice, it's like this really just fully warm baritone situation. I don't know. I really I really liked it.
There was one there's one tune where he almost kind of sounded like the guy from Elbow.
Oh, really? Guy, what's his last name? I can't even remember now. That music was so attached to a person, I could never go back to it. You know how that goes, right?
Oh,
everyone,
sure.
Yes. Everyone understands that.
His voice has that kind of, it's almost got a little bit of a like raspy, dry quality to it that just
So
makes it all sexy and good, you know?
I wonder if you heard, yes, but also there is a track in there that we talk about where he deliberately sings kind of Tom Waitsy. So I wonder if that's the song
That
you
might be it,
heard.
because it wasn't one of
Yeah.
the Goteki songs. It was
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was the
yeah.
Deathloop song. Let's listen to it. So this is him doing like his kind of version of Tom Waits, and might not even get to that point because he kind of comes in and out of it in this track. But this is a track he wrote for Deathloop, which is really cool. He got a BAFTA nomination for his Deathloop music, which is huge. And you might remember that we had Tom Salta on to talk about Deathloop because Tom was the lead composer, and then Ross also contributed a bunch. There were many other people who contributed music to it, but yeah. So this is and so he just literally wrote a song with lyrics, right? And didn't know if they'd like it, and they all loved it. So yeah, this is called "Sun Goes Down," which is pretty much all he says. No, it's so great, it's so funny to me. Here's "Sun Goes Down" from Deathloop. Sun goes down. Is this the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen to his elbowy voice.
Yeah. I love that so much.
Yeah.
It just sets such a great mood. Like everything. His singing. The sun goes down. World spins round. Sun goes down. World spins round. Yeah, it's like almost 5 minutes of that, and it's so good. Yeah, really love the vibe he captured in his Deathloop music, you know, because he, like you said, the influences that we were just talking about, Depeche Mode, David Bowie, and 9 Inch Nails. Sure, you can find that in there, but that's not what that's from. It's from like 30 years before then, you know? So,
right, yeah.
So it's fun to hear him talk about like trying to get in that mindset to write music of that era, you know? So yeah.
Well, and
really
that Deathloop music was way more band like, and it was less kind of industrial and
yeah,
stuff, even than the Goteki stuff, you know.
Right. Yeah, right. So you're talking like people standing on stage could play. Well, I mean, obviously Goteki performs live and electronic bands do all the time, but it's different, right? They're pushing buttons or yeah. I know what you're saying though. That's really cool. And a lot of that Deathloop music is like that. He kind of tapped into his inner hippie, he said, which is great.
Yeah.
You know, like all the spacey sounds and like the sitar. There's sitar in a couple different tracks and
right.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. But I mean, is there more Deathloop stuff you want to talk about? Because we kind of talked about that first, after all, which is fine.
Nope. I mean, unless
Okay.
you have any other tracks you wanted to play, I didn't have any more from Deathloop.
I'm fine. We kind of touch upon my favorites in the conversation, so I'll save it for that. I still haven't played that game. I really want to play that game at some point. So yeah, it would be great to experience that in game. So. But yeah, he and I originally talked about Texas Chainsaw. You know, that was the reason for the talk, was this is what we're going to talk about. And then as I was doing my, just background, make sure I knew what I wanted to talk to him about, I was like, oh, he did a bunch of cyberpunk music. And I learned that on the day that I happened to download Cyberpunk for the first time. Cyberpunk 2077, made by our friends over at CD Projekt Red, who did The Witcher. Which is one of the reasons the writing in Cyberpunk is so compellingly good. And yeah, so that was a fun little coincidence. I'm like, oh my God, I literally just downloaded it. I don't even think I had started it yet. That was my plan for like that day after my conversation with him. And so I'm like, well, what did you do for Cyberpunk? And he said, So in Cyberpunk, being that it's 2077, the year, there are screens everywhere. There's just TVs and broadcast. Like you get on an elevator and there's computer screens with ads on them, and just everywhere you are. It's really not that far off from now. You go to the gas station and there's screens at the gas station. So
Sure.
so it's like that. And he did all the music for all of the ads that you hear. So it's impossible to go through the game and not hear his music, which is really
Cool.
a fun way to experience his music.
Yeah.
And that's a really fun conversation too, because that's very different writing than, scoring a game, right?
Oh,
He's
big
like
time. Yeah.
writing these like 8-10 second ads. These ads just go fire, boom, 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 boom. And there's a whole station called Just Ads. It's pretty great. It's pretty great. And you'll hear some really good examples of his ads for Cyberpunk in there. But that's been a really fun game to play.
Yeah.
Now that it's been out for a few years and they fixed what was
now that it's fixed.
troublesome beginning. So I don't know what we need to hear from that, but let's talk about Texas for just a minute. The state of my birth. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The film came out, I think it was 72, maybe 74. I'd have to look now. I should know. But I really would direct you to the main conversation that I had with Wes and Ross if you want to know like what the game is like. And it's very cool. It's really neat. I did download it, by the way. I have not started it. I really wanted to before we made this show, and I just wasn't brave enough, and I'm sorry. I feel like kind of let the audience down a little. Like it would have been really fun to have that because Ross not only did the music, he did like 98% of the sound design. So that's a big deal, right? Like those two are so, interwed that it would have been fun to experience it. So yeah, go ahead.
No, that's the really fun thing about the music for that, and I think from the last show they talked about that too, is kind of the music in the movie, even the music and sound design kind of collide, and in his music for the game, it's like so sound designy. Some of it just is it's just mood setting noises, you know what I mean, that aren't even rhythmic or melodic,
Right.
And that's really badass, and it's also super fun.
Yeah.
And he does it in clever and fanciful ways.
Yeah, he really does. And he got some cool new instruments for it, electronic instruments. Two handmade ones, one from a fella or a group of people in Russia that make a machine that is touch based, but it also responds to like the humidity and stuff in your body. So it's like almost a given you'll never get quite the same sound out of it, depending on the temperature inside and humidity and all of those things. Barometric pressure, maybe. Hell, I don't know. But so that's cool. And that's called like a Soma Lyra or something like that. I'd have to look. And then he got one called I think it's called the Scary Crown. And it's made by person or people in Italy, and it's basically, it kind of reminds me of, and I know there are names for these kinds of things, but it basically has a bunch of metal spikes on it, and you bow them, and they're kind of set on a thing with the rod sticking up, and then you bow around it kind of, and it makes this horrific noise. There's a really great video of Ross playing that instrument. He loves to make little videos like that, which is fun. So you got
that's
some
one
cool
of the
instruments,
fun,
and
that was one of the fun things about the conversation with him. The stuff I've heard is that he's one of those people, and they're my favorites, who really like sharing how they do what they do. He's not trying to keep secrets. He's actually trying to share it, and he's happy to answer any questions.
And he captured some really great sounds on his iPhone too that made it into the game, which that always amazes me, but what he says, and I know you can explain this far better, is that when you're taking a sound like, for instance, his mother's refrigerator somewhere in England that was making the creepiest freaking sounds, he records it, and it doesn't have to be a really clean recording because he's going to mess with it anyway. So it's not like he had to have this perfectly captured isolated, beautifully mic'd situation to record his cat or the refrigerator because he was
Yeah.
gonna manipulate it anyway, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you know
because
how that
I mean,
goes.
there's
Yeah.
there's all sorts of problems with recording things that way, but it just depends on what you're trying to get. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
If you're gonna roll off a bunch of if you're gonna take out a bunch of the like noisy low end and a bunch of the high end stuff, then that fidelity is gonna work just fine.
Yeah. Let's listen to the fridge sound. He was
Okay.
so kind to offer these to us. I just
Yeah.
love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's listen to the fridge, which is called Mum's Fridge. I love that. All right, here's Mum's Fridge. Could you hear that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's so weird. A fridge? Like my fridge definitely makes weird noises. You've heard it.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't sound like it's breathing.
Yeah, that's a
You
pretty
know?
interesting one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I've
crazy.
I've done things like that, as you probably know, just recording sounds and things,
Yeah.
gotten some really amazing stuff that way. It's weird the sounds that those things make that you don't hear because it's just noise of machines in the background that we tune out of our lives. But there's some
Right?
epically cool sounding stuff. I remember I've got this one recording of this chair in this recording studio that it used to make this sound when you turned it around. It would just make this really crazy creak sound. And so me and a buddy of mine recorded this one chair all afternoon, like in all the different sounds it
Wow.
makes. And
Brilliant.
I still haven't done anything with that chair. I should make something
Really?
out of that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's such great fodder for scary stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, stuff like that is just so neat, and it works if you know how to mix it in properly with sound design stuff. It can
Yeah.
just be surprising to the ear and interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did share with the Discord, and I'll share it with you too, this quote of Ross talking. Oh, you know what? Oh, it's in that old session. That's so weird. So yeah, I don't think I have it anymore. Because I made a bunch of changes after I bounced it out to you. Or I didn't
Yeah.
bounce it, but after I saved the copy for you.
Yeah.
And then I deleted that old copy because I was like, well, I don't want to keep both because that's a lot of space. Okay, well, that's okay. There's this it's in the episode.
Yeah.
So you'll hear it, but he's just explaining how he wrote a lot of this music over pandemic and at home, and one of his cats, or maybe his only cat, I'm not quite sure, was basically just really hangry one night because he was late feeding the cat.
Yeah.
And the cat was just all over him and doing this really aggressive purring, how they do to manipulate,
Mm-hmm.
And so we recorded that and then flips it around and slows it way down. And what's amazing is that when you hear it, then he gave us the source that he used it in to like 4 in the game,
Okay.
which is TV static in the background as you're going through the home of Leatherface, I assume. There are TVs on with static and stuff. And so for the noise, he used the fridge and the cat in those sounds. And what's crazy is they both sound like chainsaws, which is what he loved about it. So, yeah. So
because of the
here's
purring of the cat.
Yeah. So here's the cat purr. Oh, it's so good. And then let me
That
see
is
if I can
good.
find the right one. Because if you find he sent me 3 loops of the TV sound. And when you find the purr one, you're just like, oh my God, I never would have known that
Yeah.
otherwise. But then once you hear it, you're like, holy
right,
shit.
Right.
All right. So hopefully I get it right the first one. That is so hilarious to me.
That's so cool. And yeah, it totally sounds like if we didn't know what that was, I'd be like, oh, it's some kind of interesting synthesizer like
Right?
thing or whatever. It's just a cat purring.
Just a cat. Just a cat. And I mean, I love how, yeah, oh, that's good stuff. Yeah. Very good stuff. But let's go ahead and listen to just some of the music. And again, we probably won't spend too much time on this, mostly because it's kind of getting late, but also because, again, in a game like this, the music and sound design are so just blended together that, a lot of the music is really just mood.
Yeah.
Which I guess all music is, right? We could, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying.
Totally.
One exception that also I won't spoil, you'll have to listen to episode 4, is the credits song, which is really great. And I love the way it ends, and we spend quite a bit of time talking about that. But otherwise...
Is that the one called What Will Be Left of Them?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Did you talk? Okay, yeah. yeah. I don't want to spoil any part of that conversation because I really enjoyed how I first heard that track, and all the stuff was cool. So... was there another track you had written down?
Well, I had a few written down for different reasons, but one of them I had written down was called Bizarre Crimes.
Yeah.
That was an example of one that had more of a musical beat and stuff to it. And I thought it was interesting to hear that kind of all the elements from the vibe of that game with more of a straightforward beat and stuff. Compared to some of the other ones that are more open and just scary vibes,
Right. Here's Bizarre Crimes.
Yeah. So that's like what some of that stuff sounds like when it's just made into a simple driving beat there, and those super industrial sounding where it sounds like a big stick hitting a metal thing and like all those kind of things. It's
in
so
a big
great.
empty warehouse. Yeah.
Total big empty warehouse.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing, and honestly, we barely spent any time talking about this because we spent so much time talking about it in the other episode. Because Wes, the CEO, and also he has many titles like creative director, all the things. This is really his baby in a lot of ways, I would say. Although I would say for audio, it's Ross's baby. But Wes, the CEO fella, got an instrument called the Apprehension Engine, which is
I remember that. Yep.
And also makes you can bow it and do a lot of interesting things with it. And that's all over the soundtrack. Like he basically just recorded, I don't know how much audio for Ross, but a lot of audio for Ross to then take and use in the soundtrack. And so that instrument is all over the place. And it's basically like a passing mention. Oh yeah, and Wes bought this cool instrument and it's in there too. But we mostly just talked about, the other stuff because we had spent a lot of Apprehension Engine time before. What other track would you like to hear?
Another one I wrote down was the Massacre.
Okay. Yeah, that's the main theme, which I don't know why I put that in quotes. That's the main theme.
Yeah.
It's just such a different vibe in a horror game usually, unless it's like The Exorcist or Halloween or something.
Right.
Wait, my bad. What track?
The Massacre.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Sorry, that was Bizarre Crimes again. Here's the Massacre. I really do love how many opportunities there are in audio to sound like a chainsaw. Like you just,
Right.
I
Yeah.
never would have known. There were so
Right.
many audio examples of things that could, I just love how that's woven in there,
Yeah. Also, just that there's kind of the way that the low end works. There's just a lot of like distortion and really
Yeah.
like crunchy, but not in a bad sounding, in like a really scary sounding
Right,
way.
right, right.
Imagine being in
Yep.
like a car parking enclosure or something like that, and that music comes on, and you're alone
No,
at night, you just pass out.
nope, nope. We've established how I would react.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I know you're not a huge horror fan either. So,
No, no.
no. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. I mean, I will say, because for that first interview that happened, I think I want to say in April, could be wrong. I don't know when it published, but I feel like the interview happened in April. But I watched the film for that. If you those
Right.
who listen to the episode might remember that, which is unusual for me to do that, but I loved it. It was, I mean, I'm not like eager to do it again, although I would. I
Yeah.
just thought it was it's a legacy film for a reason, like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's really a special, unique experience to see that crazy thing. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it really, especially just after spending so much time with it now, doing 2 full interviews on it, and all the time talking to Ross, and he loves it. He plays it all the time, and he just loves it, and he loves games that I love. So I'm like, oh man, I probably should give it a try and just see what it's like. And I'm sure it'll scare the pants off of me, and I will stop 10 minutes in. Who knows? Maybe I'll tough it out, but it'll be a morning thing. I will be playing it in the daylight.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
I did even consider twitching that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. We both have a lot of things going on in our life. We both have potentially major life. What do they call it? A major life event.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both might be dealing with separately, completely separately, some of those on our own. So,
Mm-hmm.
but when things settle down a little bit, that sure would be fun. So, yeah. Anything else you want to say about Ross Tregenza? Check out his music. I want to just make sure everybody knows that if you like his band Goteki, which is his industrial electronic band, all their music on Bandcamp is free. So
Yeah.
you can just go to Bandcamp. All you have to do is sign up for their mailing list, and I assure you, you're not going to be getting spammed by Ross and his band. So highly recommend that. So you can get some really great free music today. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so Ross Tregenza, we'll share that with you Friday. And, assuming nothing goes wrong, I'll be out of town, posting it from out of town, but I think that'll be fine. And, yeah, thanks for hanging out,
Yeah.
and join us on Discord.
And hi, Sasha.
And yes, hi, Sasha. Say it in my talking voice. Oh, Timothy. Hi, Timothy. So so check it out. Check out the episode. Really, totally loved this conversation, as I often do. But I just feel like Ross is going to become a dear friend of the show. So I'm pleased about that. All right. Yep. Follow us on Discord. If you can support us on Patreon, that's patreon.com/level. And all right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.